Hey everyone, welcome to Friday, rainy Friday. Welcome to Community Fit, our first ACT class of this next 6-week session. James is here and ready to grace us with his lovely wisdom. Yeah, I almost lost track of time and it's 12:15, so I'm gonna let him come on and we'll get going.
Thanks, Alicia. Appreciate it. Welcome, everybody. Okay, a little show of hands. Maybe send up an emoji of sorts if this is your first Adjusting to Change Toolkit class. Raymond, Alicia, whoever it is, can we get the screen switched? We still have our banner up. Perfect. Thank you. So if this is anyone's, we got one, we got a couple here. Great. Okay, cool. So mostly some returning faces with a couple of new folks. Welcome back, returning members, and welcome brand new folks. I'm your host, James, and this is our ACT program, Adjusting to Change Toolkit class. These are a little different each time we teach them. So if you're just joining us for the first time, know that this is not your typical kind of like drop-in class. This runs more like a course, meaning you can take individual sessions, kind of pop in and pop out, and you will get more out of the program if you make the commitment to yourself to kind of show up every week. We have tons of referential material on YouTube. In fact, Raymond or Alicia, at some point, can you drop in our YouTube channel into the chat? And that way you can go back, you can kind of watch what we've done in previous sessions and kind of learn and explore. The last 6-week session that we did it all on relational intelligence, meaning how do I get through change, whether that's a personal or professional change, a change in the world, whatever it is. How do I navigate through change better by building relationships and connecting with other people. And so that was our last 6-week session. This 6-week session is going to be very, very, very different. This session is all on how do I connect with myself to get through change, and in particular, my nervous system, and to be even more specific, my brain to get through change. This one is all on what we might call psychological fitness, meaning, and let's do a little context here, meaning that we're going to be working with the brain, but through some of our regular practices and bringing in some of what some people might recoil and some people might move towards, bringing in quite a bit of like meditation practice. I know. Normally, we don't do a lot of meditation practices on our Adjusting to Change toolkit. This session, we're doing meditation pretty much every single week, other than this week, where we're really going to dive into Nervous System Toolkit, which is usually our second session in these series. We're going to move that up, and we're going to talk a little bit about mindfulness here in a bit. And I want to kind of give you some preface as to why we're headed down the meditation route and maybe break some myths and get some curiosity going. Meditation is often taught, or meditative practices are often thought of in Western society as sort of like a calming mechanism, right? Like this is something that I do to calm my nervous system. And that is partly true. Part of it is in some practices about calming the nervous system, but meditative practices are more than that. And we've done so much body-based work, so much relational work, so much building environments work in the previous sessions that it's really time to kind of dive in on this one on like what's going on in my own thought and behavior processes. Here's what I want us to think about. Over time, and this is what it's sort of the best visual I've heard of. Imagine your brain, imagine your thought processes as like a snow-covered hill. And over time, your thoughts and your behaviors are like skis that go down, right? And it's like I go down, I go down, and I go down. And over time, there's all of these tracks. And so even when you try to have a new thought and do a new behavior and navigate uniquely, you kind of get stuck, and it's almost easier to go down where your thought patterns and your behaviors have been and done before. And so it kind of restricts possibility and uniqueness, or what we might call freedom and choice in current present circumstances. What meditative practices and other things tend to do for us is like put some fresh snow on the mountain, right? It's like a possibility for new neural tracks to happen. It also makes us more aware of our thought patterns. People often think, oh, if I do these adjusting to change toolkit practices, whether that's our somatic practices, our relationship building practices, or what we're moving into our psychological fitness practices, that like stress, anxiety, problems kind of disappear. And that is absolutely not the point. That is not, you're alive, that's not going to happen. Stress is going to continue to happen. Relationships are still going to happen. Change is still going to happen. All of that is still going to happen. What these practices, and in particular, why I'm kind of pinpointing this at the beginning of this series, what all of these practices, and in specific, what we'll be covering the next 6 weeks, allows us to do is kind of disassociate from the voice that is constantly going, or those tracks, and kind of reassociate with the listener, the watcher, the thing that is kind of observing everything. And that takes practice. It is happening within your brain all the time. You are the talker and you are the listener all the time. And often they are kind of coupled and they're holding hands, and you can't uncouple them. What a meditation practice, and we're going to kind of play with it in a few different ways over the next 6 weeks, allows us to do is spot when we're kind of coupling or holding hands, or personalizing, identifying with the tracks themselves, and instead kind of go, oh, I'm the skier. I have choice. I can look down and I can see where things are going to get grimy and where things are open. And I can spot when I'm stuck in a routine. And over time, 6 weeks from now, 6 months from now, 6 years from now, I can begin to spot when I'm going into old patterns. It doesn't mean that I've stopped the old patterns, but I can spot earlier when I'm going in there. And then that gives me the choice. That gives me the opportunity to navigate through life's changes with a little more autonomy and a lot more freedom. And that is what a meditation practice does. Some of the somatic practices we've done have been about calming the nervous system, which is sort of the barrier to entry for a lot of people when they're going into mindfulness practices, is their nervous system gets in the way. It's like we get too fidgety, we get too disassociative, it gets too uncomfortable. So that's actually where we're going to start today. Is the nervous system toolkit work? And kind of explain and go into like why it's important to a meditation practice and how it's going to help along the way. And so to start off with, let's kind of go over that mindfulness talk that we normally dedicate an entire class towards. Mindfulness and meditation are not the same thing. Meditation is a practice that practices mindfulness. Mindfulness can be practiced in a lot of different ways. One of the ways we were going to do it today is somatically, body-based, physical practices we can do where you can kind of notice change in the body, because that's what mindfulness is. It's the capacity to be aware of change. And when I say capacity to be aware of change, that is often noticed within context and variability. What is going on? How does what is going on change over time? Meaning, what's going on around me and how does that affect me inside? And how does how I feel inside affect how I am on the outside? And am I the same all the time, or do things change? And the fact of the matter is things are changing all the time. And what mindfulness is the ability to spot and be aware of that change and notice what is happening that changes me in ways that I like, and what is happening that changes me in ways that I don't like. So that's really what mindfulness is. And we're going to practice it today through a toolkit, somatic-based practices, body-based practices that do a few things. Number one, calm our nervous system, meaning re-regulate our nervous system. They also provide an opportunity to practice mindfulness, because for so many of us, we just haven't. A lot of you, most of you looking at the names on here, have been with us for a while. You have been practicing mindfulness for a while. But we want to invite the new folks in too with a practice that's a little bit lower barrier to entry than like a big meditation that we'll be doing in a few weeks. And so practicing like a breathing exercise or a self-touch exercise is often an easier way to kind of notice change and also soothe your nervous system. Now, why is this important to a meditation practice? Well, as we go through the future weeks into those meditation practices, undoubtedly, every single one of us, me included, is going to brush up against discomfort. And it could be physical discomfort, like, ooh, I don't want to sit still for a while. It could be cognitive discomfort, like, oh, I just keep having racing thoughts, right? Because it's that track. I try to go take a new track, meditation. Those old tracks keep pulling me back. And undoubtedly, that will bring up some like frustration, right? Having a breath work technique to kind of calm yourself, get yourself recentered so that you can go back into the practice that is literally going to rewire, make your brain and your cognitive abilities better. It allows that to happen, right? There could also be some emotional discomfort as we sort of are with ourselves in a quiet space. Some of that emotional discomfort, especially for those of us going through change, whatever that is, personal, professional, health, otherwise, as we're going through change, undoubtedly we've been kind of stuffing down some emotions, avoiding some emotions, and getting centered, getting welcoming to whatever's coming invites in some of that stuff we've been ignoring. And I want to give you some tools to help you through whatever discomfort comes up. So today's work is not like a one-off. We'll be practicing this through, I like kind of starting the sessions with what we're doing today and kind of adding more to them and then going into meditations. And so that's what I want to kind of, yeah, I like to have an idea of where we're headed in a course, and that is where we are headed over the next 6 weeks. So, mindfulness, ability to notice change, context and variability, where we are today, nervous system toolkit work, meditations to follow. So, let's dive into nervous system toolkit work. When we're talking somatic practices, body based practices, there are an infinite number of options and choices. And so sometimes it can feel overwhelming and confusing. Do I do it like this? Do I do it like that? Which one's better? How many of them do I have to do? And I want to kind of take some of the guesswork and some of the that friction out of the experience. And so I think of all of the somatic practices that we could do, all of those body-based practices. That's what somatic is. It's a body-based practice. That means my body in relationship to the world around me, and how's my body feeling and making me feel as I navigate through the world. So somatic practices most often have everything to do with a body-based practice. So these are your breathings, your touches, your movement, so on. And that's exactly what the toolkit is. 5 categories of practices. It is not all of the practices in the world, but most 99% of those practices that are out in the world that you could Google right now fit into these 5 different categories or buckets. So the first category or bucket is a breath work practice. And there's so many different versions of breath work. We're going to go over right now 2 simple ones. But before we do that, let's just kind of take an inventory of where we're at. Meaning, sit back in your chair and just notice. Notice maybe, does your heart feel soft, relaxed? Are you able to feel your heart? Or is your heart kind of racing, beating fast, relaxed, aggressive, slowed down? Like, what's the quality of when you notice your heart? Or maybe you need to notice your muscles and bones, meaning, do you feel agitated? Do you feel like in a fight or flight? Or do you feel in a rest and digest state? Neither one is right. Neither one is wrong. We're just noticing. Or maybe you just want to notice the overall vibe of the moment. I feel open and welcoming, or I feel kind of resistant to this. I'm feeling like I don't quite know what I'm getting myself into. And again, all of that is acceptable and fine. You're just noticing. And let's go into some of that breath work and see how the breath work changes context over time, variability. First practice is just an exaggerated exhalation. Normal human being inhale, exaggerated exhale. Do about 5 more of those. Normal human being inhale. Exaggerated exhalation. And if that one is difficult, which is fine, might be new for you, stick there, play there, be there. Or try one of my favorite breath works, the physiological sigh. It's a double inhale followed by a single exaggerated exhalation. Double inhale, exhale. Inhale, inhale, big inhale, followed by a full inhale, slow, exaggerated exhalation. I'll demo one time, and together we'll do three. Three more. Two. One more. And then just notice any change. Does the heart feel different? The body, the vibe? Does anything feel different? Better, worse? Doesn't matter. We're not trying to get anywhere. We're just noticing. We're just like tapping into what is actually happening in the moment. Now, if you liked one or both of those breathwork techniques and it took you in a direction that you prefer, right? And I'm not here to say which one is right, what is wrong. I'm just saying if one of those breathworks took you in a direction you like going toward, if it were me, I'd probably catalog breathwork. That tool category works for me. I should probably be doing more breath work more frequently. And I'd be maybe setting an alarm or giving myself some triggers to practice that. Meaning, set an alarm for like random increments. And every time that alarm on your phone goes off, maybe you do a couple of breathwork techniques. Or physiological sigh to me is a perfect stoplight exercise. Meaning, every single time you're at the stoplight, you do one physiological sigh. Now you're going to remember 10% of the time to do that, but that is 10% more time that you're going to practice that thing than if you don't practice it a little bit, right? And so when you need it, it's rehearsed. And that rehearsed practice can then become a tool for you to use when the going gets tough. So, breath work is category number one, figuring out when you might practice that if it feels important for you to practice that. Because the fact is, all of us are going to feel inclined to do or gravitate toward one of these five categories or a couple of these five categories more so than others. And the reality is, none of them are right choices for you, and none of them are wrong choices for you. It's just what is the flavor you prefer? Are you a vanilla or chocolate fan? Are you a breathwork or movement fan? And just choosing and practicing and exploring. So breathwork is tool category number one. Tool category number two is sensory foraging or an orientation practice. Our senses, our sight, our sound, our taste, our touch, our proprioception, where we are in space, really influence how we feel. So sensory foraging is kind of intentionally paying attention to what is coming in through the sensory system, things we're looking at, things we're listening to, things that we're touching or temperature or what have you, right? 70% of us are visual creatures, meaning vision is our primary or predominant sensory system. So we're going to do some orientation, sensory foraging through the eyes. Over the weeks, we'll practice different versions. But through the eyes, here's how it goes. Sitting still, you're just going to begin to look around the room. and maybe go a little slower than what you are inclined or want to do. Take it slowly and just start to objectively versus subjectively name the things in the room. What that sounds like is there's a ceiling and a wall and a piece of art and a light and some books, reading glasses, candles, plant in a mirror, a door, floor, closet, plant, sleeping dog. Bob is here. If you don't know who Bob is, you will. He's asleep over here. Window. You're just looking and taking it a little slow. Above you, behind you, below you. And maybe specifically noticing places you could exit from. Your nervous system, your body likes to know it could get out of a situation if it needed to. And it really likes to know where are the doors and the windows that you could get out of the room that you're in if you needed to. In fact, if you are feeling anxious in a space, just kind of looking around and noticing how would I exit if I needed to often begins to calm the nervous system. You're just intaking your space. Maybe even looking at something or prioritizing something that brings you a little joy. For me, again, I got a sleepy Bob over here. Looks really cute. Bob's the dog. Really, really cute. So I just kind of just watching and then noticing how that impacts or affects your nervous system. Checking in. And now that we've done a couple of different practices, you can begin to determine, are you more of a, oh, we got Bob. Bob's making an appearance. He's going to decide, where are you going, Bob? Where are you going? Oh, there he is. Here, there. No one actually comes for me. Everyone just comes for Bob. And now you can begin to discern, am I a breathwork person or am I an orientation, sensory foraging person? Which one works better? Or am I just a watch cute Bob person? That works too. And you just kind of notice which one of those works best for your system and kind of when are you going to do that? When are you going to prioritize that thing, right? Category number 3 is actually one of my favorites, and I use it quite frequently. In fact, probably more so now than ever, and that's therapeutic touch. Therapeutic touch is just literally what it sounds like, touching the body. It can be like a warmed up massage tool, right? Like those like neck warmers or like little balls that you can put into the microwave and get them warmed. Those are great options. If you've ever heard of like tapping, emotional freedom technique, that's a version of therapeutic touch. We'll be playing with all of that, but the lowest common denominator is simply this. Bring your hands together and get them warmed. Take your nice warm hands and place them on your jaw or on the front of your throat or the chest or the belly. Those are areas that are highly innervated, meaning lots of nervous system pathways running through those areas. You might even find that you are kind of someone who likes two different areas, right? Could be the throat, could be the chest, could be the belly and the chest, or the jaw and the belly. Like none of them are right choices, none of them are wrong choices. It's just what feels good. And here's why, for me personally, therapeutic touch has um, been the go-to. I find things like sensory foraging and breathwork techniques to be like immediate disruptors, right? So let's say I'm feeling anxious, I'm feeling stressed, I'm feeling in a way I don't prefer. I can do the breathwork and it like disrupts whatever it is. And sometimes that's enough, right? And usually that's if it's like a low grade stress, a low grade change, a low grade disruption. I can do the breathwork technique, interrupts, I can get back to what I'm doing. I find things like therapeutic touch to be a little more mild, a little softer technique. You kind of have to be here with this, right? I can't just touch my chest for 5 seconds and be done with it. I can't do a tapping for 7 seconds and be done with it. I got to kind of hold for a bit. And then over time, sometimes minutes, sometimes tens of minutes, your body, my body kind of registers that there's a warm, loving, heavy touch going on. And it's like a systemic letting go. It takes longer than a breath work. And because it takes a little longer, I have found in my nervous system and a lot of people's nervous systems that the change lasts longer, right? If it takes longer, it probably lasts longer. So I've got a lot of change going on in my personal and professional life, like a lot, a lot. And so I find I've been turning to stuff like this. This is like a slower, more subtle way of slower, more subtle tool. And it's almost with that slower subtleness that the change lasts a little bit longer. So explore and play. None of them are right, none of them are wrong. It's kind of understanding the tool, right? Like I'm not going to use a hammer for what I need a screwdriver to do, but I'm not going to use a screwdriver to do what the hammer needs to do. I understand the tools, but it's because I've been working with the tools for a while. And so you got to kind of pick a few favorites, explore and play, and then build out the toolkit, the library, the choice option. So now you can begin to discern, am I a breath person? Am I a therapeutic touch person? Am I a sensory foraging person? Next category, category number 4 is movement. Movement can be big, can be exercise, can be going for a run, lifting weights, stretching, yoga, Pilates, whatever it, dance, whatever it is. Big, big, big movement. It can also be very, very small, subtle movement. Here's the thing about movement. There is not a right choice. Yoga is not the best tool, movement tool for everyone, right? It gets a lot of publicity, but it doesn't mean it's the best. Same with going for a run. Same with whatever it is. The key is that the movement, if it's going to be used as a nervous system regulation tool, the movement itself needs to bring a little delight, a little joy, a little happiness, a little feel good as you're doing it. There's lots of benefits. If you hate running, there are still so many benefits to going for a run or going for a walk or lifting weights or doing yoga or Pilates. It's just not the nervous system regulation benefit. The nervous system regulation benefit has to be I enjoy doing it as I'm doing it. There is some immediate reward for me in the process of. So we're going to kind of take it and make it a little smaller, smaller movements, things that you can do in your chair. Smaller movements might look like rocking left and right. Now, as you rock left and right, and kind of watch me for a moment, I can do sort of like my spine is made of steel, right? Or I can do sort of like this more organic seaweed motion, right? Like my spine actually has joints and flexibility. And you can kind of explore and play. Which one do you prefer? Which one makes you feel better? Or you may go, I don't like that one. Maybe it's a forward and backwards rock. Maybe it's like an extension and a flexion, like a cat cow. Maybe I go a little slower. Maybe it's like a jiggle. And then just notice, how did the movement make you feel? When might you use that one? When might that be a good one to do, right? And practicing that. The last category is especially powerful and tends to be the one with the highest amount of discomfort. And I don't mean physical discomfort, I mean like emotional, cognitive discomfort. It's so simple and yet so hard to do for a lot of people. And I like to name that at the beginning because undoubtedly, as we do this, you're going to find, oh, I don't know if I want to do that one. And I want to encourage you to explore and play. Maybe in the environment you're in, maybe if you're in an office or in a room with people, maybe now is not the moment. Maybe at some point being in your car and you're playing with this one alone or in your room or in a bathroom. And what the tool category is vocalizations, it's sound. And sound can be words, it can be singing, it can be screaming, it can be laughing, it can be whatever it is. It can also start off with an audible sigh. Or a hum. So just um, practice for the next week with the tools. The tool categories again are a breath work, whatever that is, sensory foraging, bringing stuff in through the senses, therapeutic touch, being touched, movement, small movement, and vocalizations, making a sound that comes out of your mouth, vibrating the vocal cords, the nervous system, letting it all out. This will be pivotal for the rest of the next 5 weeks as we get into some meditations and working with those neural pathways and navigating through whatever discomfort comes up as we learn how to, within ourselves, navigate change for the better. I'll stop for whatever questions you got. Thank you all so much. I don't know if Alicia, you got anything to add today, but thanks everyone.
I do. Thank you, James. That was a great reminder. Once again, I practice these things almost daily now that we've been doing this for so many years. Love
Mm-hmm.
it. I just put the YouTube list of the last classes. I'm sorry, the last block of classes in the winter in the chat. So if you want to grab that, if you do miss any classes along this live session, then you can always tap into those. And also, for those of you who may have been on Wednesday, our midweek desk stretch, you know, we had a little snafu with the timing and a really easy fix. I know Raymond did send out an updated invite. However, for some, there was no ability to save it to the calendar, but a really easy fix that the invite that you had, it's the same link. You can just move it on your calendar to 12:15 instead of 12 o'clock. So really easy fix there. Also, you'll get a reminder before class every day anyway. You could just use the reminder as well. So with that, I hope that everyone has a wonderful weekend and we will see you next week.
Got it. Thank
All
you so
right.
much.
All right. Thanks, James. Thanks,
Bye,
Raymond. Thanks,
everybody.
everybody.